So, Marco, you mentioned STEM, and I follow you on LinkedIn and I see how passionate you are about it. I know a lot of companies will say, hey, we're doing STEM stuff, but I think it's more just like wallpaper.
Yep.
Whereas, I see you really involved on a day to day basis with that stuff. What is it that gets you so fired up about that you're so involved in it?
Well, it was my path. Right? It was my path, and it's a path of many of our employees. Right? Not everybody that's on with silver spoon in their mouth or the opportunities in the network to do things. And so I had hands up, people help me along the way and did things for me like not mentorship, but like some bridge programs, some scholarships. There were some facilities that I participated in. One group helped me find a roommate for college.
What does it take to build an engineering company to 500, 600, 700, 800 employees and beyond? It takes a lot. It takes a grind. And in this episode, we're going to talk about that grind. I have with me special guests today, Marco Campos. Marco is the founder, executive chairman, and chief culture officer of Campos. I also have Robert Sawaya, who is the CEO of Campos. And they're going to talk about what it really takes to grow a company, how to invest in youth leadership, and how to invest in STEM the right way. Not just talking the talk about STEM development, but walking the walk and really investing in thousands of STEM students every year. This is an awesome episode packed with valuable information and really focused on that grind, and I'm excited to share it with you. I'm Anthony Fasano, and this is the Civil Engineering CEO. All right, now I want to welcome our guests onto the show for today. Marco Campos is the founder, executive chairman, and chief culture officer of Campos, and Robert Sawaya is the CEO of Campos. Marco, Robert, welcome to the Civil Engineering CEO Show.
Good morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure to be here.
All right, excited to have you both here with me. And so what I want to start off with, and I'm going to ask Marco in a few minutes about the origin story of the company, but I just want to start with maybe you can give me an overview of the company today and kind of the role that each of you play. Marco, maybe you can start for us.
Absolutely. So, the Campos companies, all under the Campos Holding Company umbrella, are a portfolio of energy infrastructure companies. And we're focusing in the major aspects of society, including civil engineering, around engineering, project management. We have a construction arm. In that construction, we do fabrication. We do high-level management consulting. And we also have a technology company that we recently sold 2/3 of, but we still own a 1/3 position out of Canada. And so we really focus on basically keeping the lights on, keeping the heat and the air conditioner working, and allowing economies to scale when it comes to energy infrastructure.
That's great.
We are in North America, so we have operations primarily in domestic United States, but we do get into Mexico and Canada as well.
Okay, great. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about the leadership transition recently, but Marco, what do you tell us about your role today that you play?
Well, today I played the most important role. In today's evolving society, with this steep technology curve, culture is everything. And, in a culture of consulting, it's cutthroat. People tend to be very focused on billability, which we are also. But you also have to look at some of these softer parameters and things that affect quality of life and our people. Since COVID, there's been a dramatic shift to things like family time and understanding the role that work plays in your life and what the ultimate goals of an individual are and what is their value proposition. And so my job right now is to, you can't make everybody happy, but to do the best that we can as a group of companies to ensure that the individuals are aligned to the things that we do in our foundation, right? Our culture is heavily reliant on the work that we do in the communities that we serve around women and underrepresented minorities in STEM, right? Science, technology, engineering, math is huge for us. And the basis of the work that we do is around engineering. We try to get our 800 employees and their families aligned to that mission. And so culturally, it's a challenge, but we're able to make sure that we integrate our communities into the work that we do. I like to say that our companies are a means to our to meet our goal, which is ultimately to help in the communities of Worcester.
That's great. That's awesome. And Robert, I know we're going to get into like the leadership transition a little bit later, but tell us about your role as CEO today. Like, what does it look like on a day-to-day basis for you?
Great question. My role right now is overseeing all the operational functions, all the administrative functions, really the day to day of the whole company, but from a high level, overseeing the presidents of each of the 8 organizations that are underneath the holding company, and making sure that we're planning for the future. Our strategies are making sense. Our forecasts are coming true. If there's adjustments we got to make throughout the year, a lot of the strategy comes from myself, Marco, and a lot of our C-suite.
Awesome. Awesome.
That's it.
So
We like to say,
yeah,
at the top, you only deal with problems, right? And
Yeah.
that's super true here. Robert is consistently day after day dealing just issues, and I try to help him with some of those, although it's his baby and his responsibility to deal with that. When you have a group of 8 companies, different priorities, it becomes a challenge. And at the end of the day, it becomes personalities and conflicts and client management, and it's the same stuff over and over. It just becomes more complicated as the bigger you get.
Yep.
yeah,
Exactly.
totally agree. I mean, I'm an entrepreneur myself, and I have a business coach, and he gave me one of the best pieces of advice. Is he says, as the CEO, your goal should be to have nothing to do every day, because you're going to have to deal with problems every day. You're going to have to deal with things that come across your desk, and if you're pulled into things, routine things that you're constantly having to do, and you can't solve the biggest problems in your company, that's going to be hard for you to really do your job. So I thought that was an interesting way to think about it.
Yeah. Well said, and definitely, appreciated across, I think, any business.
Yeah, for sure. So, Marco, you founded Campos and successfully led it for years. Tell us what inspired you to start the company, and maybe even some of the bigger challenges that you faced in the early days growing it.
All right. Well, the challenges, and there's no uniqueness to the challenges of an entrepreneur, right? I mean, it is always a challenge, and there's always something there. Let me specific to me. I grew up with humble beginnings. I didn't have a mentor. To this day, I don't have a mentor. That has caused problems, but it's also, I think, given us a somewhat of a superpower, because being naive, we're driven by our grind and basically our desire to do what we believe is right. And as engineers, having engineering degrees and background, we know how to critically think, but we also got some street smarts to us. And that grind really has I think escalated us and taken us to that next level where we're able to do things that others haven't. Our company model is different. So just backing up a little bit, what made me start the group of companies? It was really focused around my value proposition. Okay, I had worked with some operating companies, and ultimately ended up going to a consulting company. And I was about 29. I always had a goal of 30 to start a company. Growing up with no money, I knew I needed money to make my family their opportunities more meaningful in life, and that was the way it was going to be. And so I don't have a tremendous passion for engineering. I don't. I was good at it. My passion was my family and making sure that we were able to do things in this world that I hadn't previously been subjected to, and they had the other things they wanted. So when I was working at a consulting company, one of the things I learned pretty quickly is that they provide you 4 walls and a laptop. Okay, and this isn't every company that's a consulting company, but this company was like that, and a lot of the big ones in particular are like that. It's basically, what do you bring to the table? What clients can you bring? What can you do for us? We're basically going to be the company, but you go make all the money. You do the hiring, the firing. You do the client management. You go find the work. All that. I was doing all that, and I was shocked. Okay, I was 29 years old getting that done. I was building a good book of business. I had a wife at the time and 2 children. I currently have 4 children, and no wife, but we were doing well. Okay, and everyone around me was telling me how well we're doing. You're doing great. You're living the American dream. You got a big fat mortgage. Blah 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 blah. This is what I heard. Okay, I knew there was more. And so ultimately a day of reckoning came. I wanted to move my family to a different location. I wanted to move us to Hawaii, to start an office out there. We're doing a lot of work with the government, the military at Full Harbor, and the gas company out in Hawaii. And I built like a $5 million book of business. And to me, that was a lot at the time for myself in a small town. We're doing well. went and got my Hawaii PE. He had a meeting with the president of companies called Vico. It's now Jacobs. It ultimately got bought by CEO and then Jacobs. And I had a meeting with the president, and I told him, I said, look, this is something I want to do. I got the business. I got the license. Let's go. He said, no way. That's way too risky. Okay. So this is how these consulting companies are. They get a little fat and happy, and they don't want to move. And I said, look, this is going to happen. Okay. I'm a 29-year-old punk kid in his eyes, I'm sure. And he said, it's not going to happen. We're not going to do it. And I said, well, let me tell you what is going to happen. I quit. And he said, okay, go for it. Load up. We both loaded up. 2 days later, he came back into to my office and said, well, we can't do any of this work without you. We don't know any of your clients. This is going to be a big black eye for us if you don't help us with this. And he said, we need you to do this work for us. Will you stay? And I said, no, number one, I'm not staying. I already told you how this is going to go. Number two, here's my rate sheet. And I'm going to give you all 10% of the work, and the rest is all mine. And I don't want to hear anything else about it. And they said, okay. And that was the first coup. And that was effectively the start of our first company, which is Campos EPC. Again, we have 8 companies now, but Campos EPC is the largest of our portfolio. And it is when I began operations at that point. And, I had been preparing for about 6 months. I wasn't blind. I understood how this game was being played. They hadn't aligned me to my personal value, right? There was no equity. There was no options. There was no major bonuses. It's basically, I brought to the table what I could bring to the table. And so it was an easy decision for me. I was cash flowing immediately. All my clients came with me, right? So out the gate, I was working out of my basement. It was exciting. I had a couple employees that I brought into the basement, and we're basically ordering pizzas and just trying to get it done. I did know Rob at that time. Actually, it was very interesting. I did try to bring Rob in as my first employee back in the day, but he was a little young shit out of college, and he had some other ideas around what he wanted to do, and he had some different whatever. Long story short, it's fine, but I don't hold any animosity to that. But it would have been kind of cool to have him be the first employee to come. So it was from there, was just a ride. It was a grind, and we could go more on into the story and how we ultimately evolved. But it was very intense, and I there was no sleep. At that point in the game, I was very concerned about my family and how this was going to play out, and ultimately worked out successfully. They had no choice.
So I just want to go back real quick to that conversation that you had with your boss, because I don't want to gloss over that. I think that's a big step. And I think that I'm curious as to how, you had the confidence at that age to say that, and here's my rate sheet. Like, what was that thought process? Like, how did you build up your courage to do that?
Well, I was shaking inside, right? You had the metaphor of the duck on the pond, right? Its feet going crazy. Right. And inside, I'm dying inside. But I tell you what, I grew up tough. And I'll tell you, I knew I was being pushed around. And I also knew that I held the cards, and I was going to go for it. I knew that I'm at the top 10% of people in the game. Okay, I knew I could find a job. My family wasn't going to starve. This is what I tell people today. I talk to so many people that do not, I'm going to have the courage. Okay, maybe they're not wired for it, but they do not have that to make that jump, to believe in themselves, right? That's what, and not everybody is that, and I get that, but that wasn't me. And when someone squares me up like that, I know I'm doing well, but I also know that I could be taking all this money and putting it in my pocket and doing things that I want to do with my family and in the community. They weren't doing anything in the community. They weren't helping anybody. This was just dog eat dog. Take what you could. And there's bigger things in the world. And I'll tell you, although it felt hard, I was a little bit naive. They didn't know what to do with that. Okay. Again, you got a 30-year-old kid here who's going to go do some stuff. He's holding the cards, and let him see what he's going to do. He's going to go fail. Everybody that surrounded me in that organization at that time has since asked me for a job. Okay. Over the past 20 years, and some of them a couple of times. And so people are not going to believe in you, right? It's up to you to take to plunge, and up to you to make sure that ultimately your best revenge, if that's what you want to call it. I don't call it revenge. I just call it me, right? You're going to come out on top. And ultimately, the other people are going to need you. They're going to see that, and they may get on board or they may not. Don't hold it against them.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that because I love how one person's decision and that meeting that you had and that action now can drive the lives of hundreds of other people because you were willing
Well,
to
that's
make
just
that.
it, and it does it on our positions, right?
Right.
We're a group of companies that are built on our 7 core values, right? Our ethics, performance, compliance. We're schedule driven, we're aligned to the client, employee utilization, and the biggest one of all, culture now. Those are our
Yeah.
7 core values, and we do not flip from those. And because I was able to do that from the ground up, it has become part of us, and it's no longer corny. It is who we are.
Yeah.
And we do some special things, like we don't have business development people. Not a single business development person in our company. Okay. Our peers, they can have a dozen people at a company our size that focus just on business. We're doer sellers. We're
Mm.
sharps. We get it done. And so maybe Rob wants to speak a little bit more related to that, but it's
Yeah.
it's a very powerful thing.
That's
Absolutely.
awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. And I love the idea of the grind and mentioning the grind. I just finished reading a great book called The Book of Joe about Joe Madden, who took the Cubs to like their first major league championship. And he never played in the major leagues. He couldn't get there. He was in the minors for 20 years, coaching, playing. And he looks back and he's like, you know what? I wouldn't trade it in for the world because that struggle that I had in the minors for 20 years made me the coach that I was when I eventually broke through. So I love that mentality of that struggle and that work. So Robert, you became the CEO, you stepped into that role. Talk to us a little bit about your approach to leading an established company, but kind of bringing your own vision and
Yeah.
yourself to the table as well.
Well, let me just stop and kind of say, the history that I've been with the organization. I started in 2010, which was, I think, around the 5-year anniversary of the company. Been with the company for about 15 years. And really, when I started, it was 12 people. It was Marco, obviously, gave me a lot of responsibilities, and we grew together. So we've been in line, and I appreciate Marco through the years, including me on a lot of these decisions and conversations. And we've kind of, I would say we've kind of supported each other through the growth and the struggles and the opportunities and the challenges. So right from the get go, I've kind of been ingrained into this culture with Marco for as long as I've been here, and I've appreciated it. So when I'd made the ultimate step, I think, into the CEO position, it was relatively easy because I've already been working very closely with Marco. He actually, I was at the COO position about 3 years ago. So through that, I was actually mentored for about 3 years prior before taking the ultimate role. So anyway, how do I continue to keep the culture? How do I keep to driving the success? It's really just continuing to do what we do. There's no drastic changes, right? We kind of have the winning recipe already. It's just keeping things moving smoothly. Maybe it's small incremental changes, but it's not change just to change. We at the end of the day, our people are our business, and so we had established a trademark with our people are our power. It's very meaningful, but it's true. Like, we have to hold our people to the highest level because they're what drive our business. So a lot of that goes into these decision-making processes. At the end of the day, we know that we have to depend on our people, so we have to bring them value propositions too. So, how is the next great shark in our organization going to drive new business? How do we incentivize them because they are doing great things? Most of the time, it's financial incentive, and really just understanding how we approach each individual on that case by case has been kind of part of that recipe for success. But anyway, long story short, relatively easy stepping in the CEO role, and I still kind of lean on Marco occasionally. So it's actually been a fun transition.
Yeah. And I would imagine that a lot of that is a testament to the values that Marco mentioned. You have your values in place, and now someone else is going to maybe help to shepherd those values, but you have a lot of that in place that you can step in, and you've been there for a while. So, the culture well, which is great. And so let's talk a little bit about leadership transition a little bit more. And Robert, I'll go back to you for this one. Just maybe you can talk about like some of your, personal challenges or opportunities, or just general challenges and opportunities around the transition. I think for anyone, when you have these leadership transitions in your careers, especially for engineers, because we're technical by background, so leadership can feel awkward to us. And obviously,
Yeah.
you've been a leader prior to becoming the CEO, but just take us through the transition for you.
So the transition, like I said, I'm very much like Marco. I enjoyed engineering, but it hasn't always been my passion. My passion is managing people, making sure that we're developing a business. I feel like I bring a lot of business background. I do have a master's degree in engineering and technology management, but that's always been my passion: is growing a business, being kind of feeding into that entrepreneurial spirit, bringing other people to the table. But no, I think in general, it's just understanding strengths and focusing on strengths and how we can help develop the organization. How can we put the right pieces in place, right? If we're playing chess, we want to make sure that we're putting all the right pieces together and the right moves. So from a leadership standpoint, from a transition standpoint, it's just doing what we've done. And when we were a small company, it was dealing with little challenges. It was dealing with safety matters, making sure that we had our safety stuff together, making sure we had an incident happen, and how do we respond to our clients? One of the best lessons I've learned over time and being a senior leader in the organization has been, how do we respond to our clients? Because that's what makes or breaks us. Projects are always going to go wrong. There's always going to be challenges on projects. How do we respond adequately, and how do we try? That has been a big part of our success. And our clients understand that. They say, okay, Campos, they may slip up here or there, but they're going to get it done. They're going to make sure they find final resolution. So part of that just plays into just the overall nature, the culture, and how we treat our clients.
Yeah,
Yeah, I love that.
Anthony, we always respond with integrity and urgency, okay,
Yeah.
and transparency, and it's something that a lot of people, a lot of companies don't believe in, frankly. But we do let them see what's behind the curtain, and it's okay. We're human beings, and I think that that candor helps us gain these relationships. We're a company that is very focused on organic growth. We don't do acquisitions. We don't believe in them. This organic growth costs money, right? Cash flow becomes a problem for us because we are self-funded. We're doing things ourselves. 1% of our revenues goes to the communities that we serve. Okay, that's a monster task. And as we've grown, one of the big issues that Rob has to deal with every day is cash flow. And you can't add staff, you can't add companies, you can't do these bigger EPC jobs without money. And doing that becomes a tremendous challenge when you're doing it yourself. And we don't have outside investors. We don't believe in equity money, private equity money in our space. The competitors that you see that are private equity run have no culture. They have none.
Yeah.
And the people don't believe in them. They're just there to clock in, clock out. They're not doing anything in the communities. That's not where we're about. And so Rob has a continuous challenge trying to make this work. We yell at each other every day, trying to figure things out, about what's happening with their cash. How are we going to fund this thing? What's going on? It's a continuous challenge. And even when we sold one of our companies, we got very good money for it. I think it was a $70 million check for something we got. And that money's counted. It's spoken for, in our motto. It's spoken for. And that is just how it goes. But we're proud of our companies and our people. Our people are our power. We're proud of our management team. And Rob has specific challenges as we move forward to try and grow this beast and still abide by all the core values and the organic growth and things that we've established as necessities for our continuous living.
Yeah. Yeah. And I really like what you guys are saying. And to me, I've always told our team members that your clients look at the way you respond to adversity, right? That's what tells them a lot about you. Anybody could do good when things are going good, right?
Sure.
But when all of a sudden you find something out on a site that's going to cost your client an extra $1 million on a project, how are you going to explain that to them? How are you going to work through that process with them? And to me, that's what makes them come back for more. And to Marco's point, that's maybe why you don't need business developers.
That's
because
right.
if you have those relationships with your clients, as soon as one project ends, they're coming right back to you for the next one.
That's right.
And that's how you build the business. And I agree 100% with the whole private equity idea. We've seen some of our clients with it, and it's just basically like, let's get in the door, let's pump it up, and then let's sell it type of thing, right? And they're not really thinking, and they're not thinking about the people that are there grinding every day, which is obviously where you guys are putting the emphasis on with the culture and the people that are kind of doing the work. So Marco, how about from your side, the transition? I mean, you found a company, you grow the company, and then, one day you kind of step back a little bit and, you relinquish some of the leadership stuff and get into more chairman mode. Talk us through that mindset.
Let me be real with you. This is tough. This is tough. And I've run every job. I've had every job at the company, every job. And being at the top is the toughest, especially when you give a shit. Okay. When you care about the people, you care about the work. This is our legacy. It is everything. And so my body basically told me that it was time. Okay. Like, I mean, when you're throwing up in the shower every couple of weeks or whatever, that's a tough hoe. And it's a tough road. And I'm not saying that it wasn't worth it. It was worth every bit of it. But at the end of the day, I have good people and I develop good people. And Rob's not only is he my CEO, he's my best bud. And we've been through a lot together, and I trust him implicitly with my companies and with these decisions. And so there was nobody else that I felt comfortable in that space with. And so it wasn't an easy decision for me today. I still step on his toes all the time. And it's his job to and it's incumbent on him to kind of make sure that I understand, get out of his way and let him do what he has to do. But I'm not perfect, but at the same time, I have other goals. Okay. I was at the helm of this thing almost 20 years, and it was a wonderful ride. But we're focusing on our bigger goals now of helping the indigenous. It turns out I'm Comanche, and 38% native blood in me. And we're going to be focused on building a kindergarten through university STEM program on indigenous land. Okay. And this is going to cost us millions. It's going to cost us a lot of effort, energy. And I've been training for this my whole life. So, I'm doing that, and I'm working with the Comanche in Lawton, Oklahoma right now to kind of get this thing off the ground. I'm also doing things like writing a book. And, I have a whole lifelong goal list and things that I want to do. And so compost companies will always be part of me. I will always continue to give it my resources, energy, and treasure. But it's for others to run in a day-to-day capacity. I'm involved in the strategy, and I just have to find a comfort with that. I don't think any founder is ultimately ever good with just letting things go. Okay.
No.
But I'm making money. We're doing things for the community, and I see that Rob's very capable of doing what he's doing. And so I feel good about it.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah. I mean, it is a hard thing. I mean, at EMI, I was doing all of our training for the longest time, and then my voice gave out. I couldn't do all the training anymore, right? And at some point, like you said, Mark, if it's not you doing it, your body starts to tell you, like, you got to get help. And in a lot of ways, I had good leaders too, but you just got to push yourself over the threshold of letting them take it and just say, listen, do it. And I kind of had to talk myself into, like, what's the worst thing that happens? Something messes up, we solve it together. We move on to the next thing. And it's like you said, it's having that like implicit trust in people. If you really want to grow the company the right way, it's kind of how you have to, you go through that process.
And I see this with entrepreneurs all the time, right? You have two people working for you. You feel like as the founder, you're the only one who could do any of the work, or you're the only one who could do it right. It's all ridiculous, right? All this has been done before. So you have to learn quickly to scale and understand you have to believe in people and bring in the right people to help you do that. Otherwise, you're out of luck. And you are going to end up in a hospital bed. You are going to end up with a heart attack, or your kids aren't going to have a father, whatever that looks like. Because if you don't delegate, you're going to die, and you max out in terms of your earning potential.
So, Marco, you mentioned STEM, and I follow you on LinkedIn, and I see how passionate you are about it. I know a lot of companies will say, "Hey, we're doing STEM stuff," but I think it's more just like wallpaper.
Yep.
Whereas, I see you really involved on a day-to-day basis with that stuff. What is it that gets you so fired up about that you're so involved in it?
Well, it was my path, right? It was my path, and it's a path of many of our employees, right? Not everybody is born with silver spoon in their mouth or the opportunities in the network to do things. And so I had hands up, help people help me along the way, and did things for me like not mentorship, but like summer bridge programs, some scholarships. There were some facilities that I participated in. One group helped me find a roommate for college. I'd never stepped on a college campus until my first day reporting to school. I only applied to one school. That was the kind of guidance I had, right? And thank God that it worked out. But we want to put people in a position where they have better opportunity and they understand. And, especially when you look at like women, in the STEM roles, society, we tend to, I think, derail them at an early age from things like STEM. And it's so critical in these kindergarten through elementary times where you actually get females exposed to STEM and they understand this is something that they can do and it's okay for them to pursue and they could do it well as anybody else. So that's our passion, energy. That's where it comes from. It doesn't resonate with everybody in the companies, but that's okay. It resonates with us overall. And that's our mission. We put our resources and energy there. We give every office a budget to do stuff locally, 30 plus locations. They have a budget where they'll try to make a difference in the way that they see fit and in the longer line of aligned to STEM initiatives. Sometimes not. Sometimes they want to help a burn center. I could help a food center, whatever that may be, but that's fine. And it just gives everybody an opportunity to feel like we care a little bit more. But at the same time, we're still a consulting company. We care about buildability. We have to make our money. And so nothing is perfect. I tell people this all the time. You're never going to find the perfect job. I can't find the perfect job. I could make my own job right now and I can't find it.
Right.
It just doesn't happen. And so we have to align to doing something good, doing something to put food on the table for our families and, hoping to build their legacy.
Yeah. And those of you out there, you hear about STEM, you should definitely check out Campos in terms of what they're doing with the Campos Foundation. There's a lot of great stuff out there. We're not going to have time to get into all that today, but they really are like walking the walk, not just talking the talk, which I think is really important.
Over 5,000 students a year. And
yeah,
so
exactly.
Yep.
And it's really eye-opening. I've been really following what they're doing. It's great stuff. So Robert, let's talk a little bit about mentorship and youth leadership development at Campos. Talk to us about your leaders, how you do mentoring, about how you develop people there.
Yeah, great question. So a lot of this starts with just training, right? Basic training. And we've made a ton of investment in the organization, probably over the last 4 or 5 years in developing our training programs from early engineers coming in, early project managers, coordinators, all that stuff. And we're developing basically LMS, learning management system, around all these folks to make sure that they're continuing to grow in their career in terms of education. The mentorship is slightly different. That kind of goes into the culture and how we continue to develop our leaders and we identify our next up and comers. It's an annual thing where we kind of survey our senior leadership and kind of say, who's stepping up to the plate? Who are you seeing? Let's make sure that we're giving them every opportunity to grow and be part of a bigger part of the company in the next few years. So it's identifying those folks, it's building the training, and then really taking the time in terms of mentorship to take a few folks under your wing and actually drive that mentorship. Marco, through his role, and I'll just kind of speak briefly on this, in the chief culture officer role, has actually taken it upon himself to visit each of the offices annually just to make sure that message doesn't go by the wayside. It's an important message. People need to understand that, yes, there's value proposition here. We want to continue. We want to encourage people. Not everyone wants to step up and be a leader too. And we also want to recognize that. There's some case where people are happy just doing their piece of the work, and that's okay. We want to make sure that they feel like they have a home here too. But for the people that have that ambition, we want to foster that and grow that. And I feel like we've been very successful doing it.
That's great. Yeah, I think that in today's world, professionals in this industry, they're not just necessarily looking for the biggest paycheck. They're looking for leadership development opportunities. We hear that all the time from engineers. And so it's nice to hear that you're really investing in that, obviously, building programs around it, investing in it, giving people those pathways, because that's what people want, and my take on business has always been, the people aren't just there to serve the business. The business is there to serve the people, and the people want to develop. They want to lead. And if they want to lead, let's help them lead, type of thing. So it's great to hear how you're investing in it. And I think it's great that Marco is getting out there, even in whatever role you're in today, Marco, to be able to connect with people in the different locations and kind of drive that home.
Yes, exactly.
That's a big piece of it. All right. So the last question that I wanted to ask here, I know we got to wrap up. So Marco, just based on your whole experience in your career, for those professionals out there, engineering entrepreneurs, they want to grow a company, they want to build a company, they want to kind of do their thing and not necessarily have to do what everyone else is telling them to do. What is kind of some advice you can give them just based on your journey?
You need to understand what you have that you can monetize. Okay, do people actually want it? First of all, if you don't have anything that you can't monetize, you're not going anywhere. Okay. Second is, do you have the stomach for what you're about to go through? Because people talk about it all the time. If you do not have that grind, the discipline to hold back and maybe not spend money, hold off on decisions. If you're going to be the person who needs to go around the world once a year and go to Tahiti and all this kind of stuff in the early onset of your businesses, it ain't going to work, right? And people are like, oh my God, there is no work-life balance. Okay, forget the whole work-life balance thing. That is not a thing when you're a founder of a company. Okay, right. You're making sacrifices. You're sacrificing time with your family, relationships with your family to build something bigger for them and their legacy moving forward and opportunities. And that's a very hard thing for people to say and acknowledge. I wish I could have spent more time with my family, but I'm here with my daughter right now. We're in LA. We came for just a couple of days. We're having a wonderful time doing exceptional things that most people dream about. Okay. But I had to build that over a course of 20 years to get us there. Right. And I've always been a good dad. I've always been there for my kids doing things, but I had to sacrifice. And that's just the reality of what you're going to have to do. So that consistency, that grind, that discipline, these are not hard things to gather or to understand. They're hard things to do. And that's just the reality of it. So once you can monetize something, you apply those principles, and then you got to take calculated risks. As engineers, we know how to take calculated risks, not be risky, take calculated risks. Do it, get out of your comfort zone, move. People don't want to move anymore. They're happy. How many people have I met where they haven't left the state, especially in California? I'm in California right now, in Southern California. People don't leave. It's comical. Okay, it's comical. They have no perspective of the world. They have no perspective of business. They understand this area and how it goes. So you gotta travel. You gotta understand perspective in those applications. And there's no magic solution. I can't tell you everything to do, but I do know that if you're consistent, you find something that you can monetize and you show discipline, you're gonna win. And I would also say, make sure you have a mission beyond your companies. I get so pissed off with companies because they act like, oh, maybe we're a medical company and you help people because we come up with solutions. They do it for profit. Let's not kid ourselves. They're doing it for profit, not because they care. What do you do with your profits? That's how I judge companies and what they do. What do you do with your profits? So making sure that individuals, if they are going to start something, align to a mission in the community that they serve, make it meaningful, make it part of your DNA. It'll give other people something to point to beyond the widget that you're building and the service that you're offering.
That's awesome. That's great. And I think just a couple of key takeaways here. I mean, first of all, I think having these really strong values across your company that you really hold strong to, that's something that we took out of today for sure. I think this idea of the grind, I heard both of you talk about it, and it's a real thing, and people need to be ready to do it and engage in it if they want to grow something special. It's not easy. It's hard work, and it's hard work every day. And I think that last part is really powerful too, about the whole idea of, what do you do with your profits, right? We talked about STEM, we talked about, the Campos Foundation, right? It's like, you're saying you're doing it, but what are you really doing, right? 5,000 students a year. That's what you're doing, right? So, results, bottom line results, I think you got to walk the walk when you talk the talk. And so Marco Campos, Robert Sawaya from Campos, thank you so much for spending some time with us here. I know how busy you both are, but this is really valuable information for our audience, and we really appreciate the time.
Thank you, Anthony. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Anthony.
I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Marco and Robert. They are both true leaders in the industry, and they are walking the walk. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe to our channel here. We put out videos like this on a weekly basis to help engineers become better managers and leaders. I'll see you next week.